Hi, I'm Mark Bailey, Victor Papa 2 Victor, stroke Kilo Delta 4 Delta.
I'm Mike, W9RE.
Okay, we were invited to join Kenny, K2 Kilo Whiskey, and Team Vertical on an expedition to Anegada, British Virgin Islands, for the 2023 ARRL 10-meter contest. And this was a low-power effort, and this is Kenny's presentation, but he could not be here today. So you're getting the two first-timers from Team Vertical. Team Vertical had been on a hiatus since COVID, and Kenny and Tom were originally planning this, and Kenny wanted it to be someplace warm, safe, and without hassles with transporting the equipment. The team, Kenny, Kilo 2 Kilo Whiskey, Mark, Alpha Golf 9 Alpha, and the two of us first-timers. And why Anegada? This is Kenny's work, and the work and planning to do something like this is just absolutely vital. But he was looking for a Caribbean island where there wasn't a mountain that blocked either the important paths to US and JA or the long path opening. So he wanted a coral island which was flat, with good paths over water to Europe, USA, and JA. He thought the Cayman Islands weren't rare enough. Mexico XE is hard to license, and Venezuela is just way too dangerous. So Anegada, Victor Papa 2 Victor 1. Cheaper travel costs to get there. They have cottages and such for accommodations. We had a lot of space for antennas. And we had a couple of beach bars very close to where we set up the antennas. Another planning thing, Victor Papa 2 Victor limits power to 400 watts. And we had a solution for that, which is to go low power. The other thing about Anegada is it's hard to get to. The ferry runs 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, in the morning and afternoon. So we arrived Sunday and took the ferry over Monday, but there are good flights from Miami to Roadtown.
So for this expedition, we had to take everything with us. Nothing is available on the island. The island only had 250 people, residents, and so it was all tourism. So each of us had around 125 pounds of gear that we took. Okay. Yeah, there we are on the dock, getting ready to load. All the antennas were in a golf club carrier. We had a Moxon and 6 verticals plus a spare, plus we had a coax and inverted V's and set everything. And we even had to take our food. We had to take our food that we ordered from a road town, that's the city in Tortella, that we took with us. We ate all of our dinners at the breakfast and lunch, basically at the place, but we did go out for some dinners, but we still had to have food for some of the dinners. The rental car, we rented a car, and as you can see, that was how we filled our tank up with gas. The fellow was at his house. He got a 600-gallon tank from Puerto Rico and had 10-gallon containers. That was just about right, but it was all gravity feed. No electric gas stations on the island. You can see to the left there a lot of cows on the island, some wild horses. We didn't see much other animal activity other than that. The picture on the right is one of the places that yachts came. It seemed like there were a lot of visiting yachts. So people, just kind of stopped visiting some of the British West India Islands and British Virgin Islands, and stayed on their yachts. Food was not cheap. Dinner like that was around $80, and we had to call ahead of time, like before 4, and order what we wanted because there were very few people visiting. The week before that we had been there, they had a lobster fest, and I think they had quite a few people there, and it was a little bit easier to get food, but they wanted us to have, there are no online menus, so it was a little tough to see what we wanted for dinner. This is a picture from our deck, and it was just beautiful. You can see out there a little bit, there's like a reef. And so the water was warm, very nice, very few people. And they had less people to ask us about what we were doing, because as you can see, we've got better pictures. You can see 6 verticals there lined up on the beach. We buried the coax in the sand, but we had people come by and look, and they couldn't understand what it was. Everybody was very friendly, and we tried to explain what we were doing, and everybody kind of took it in stride. So on the left, we had 2 verticals to USA JA, and on the right, we had an in-fire broadside to Europe. The other thing from this deck that I learned about living in Indianapolis, I never saw it. The sky was just lit up with stars every night, so clear, and it was just unbelievable. That was one thing I'll stick in my mind. You could see shooting stars. You could just see just a complete, no ambient light problems. So it was really, really a nice place.
Okay, great. The beach is very, very fine white sand. Everywhere you drive on the island, it's kind of narrow and fairly long, but almost everywhere you see beaches like this. You take a road off the main road, this is where you arrive. It's just a gorgeous beach. The place is wonderful. The weather was windy, but the water was warm, and the place is just really nice. So for the antennas, as he just mentioned, we had a 4-element broadside in-fed array fixed on Europe, and a 2-element array for USJA, and this says Mexico for the Mexico sections. Our overland other paths were going to be covered by a 2-element Moxon, which also fit in the Gulf bag with all of its elements, and that was built by N3AC. I had never seen a vertical design like this. This is N6 Bravo Tango, and he calls it a vertical open ring design. But there's a pretty typical vertical radiator, but the counterpoise comes out from that radiator and goes to an X-shaped support structure and 3 sides of a square, and that's what it resonates against. Remember, under this is either very wet sand or salt water, depending on the tide. So that's the current return. The feed point is at the bottom. We don't have to bring the coax out at a 90-degree angle, and we tuned those on the, we tuned them before we took them down to the beach with an AA230, and then double-checked the SWRs and made sure the measurements were right. This design is supported by sand spikes. It's sort of like what some of the fishermen use, but we pounded metal sand spikes into the beach and mounted the antennas to that. The design of this was intended to be a smaller footprint without the radials or the counterpoise extending a long way away from the verticals. Lower weight, would fit in a golf bag. Similar gain as with 2 elevated radials is what Tom tells me. Coax does drop from the feed point, and this trip was going to help prove the design in the field under actual conditions. Before the contest, the USJA array played very well to JA. During the contest, propagation did not play well to JA. This is a sand spike, and this is a close-up of the part of the 4-element array, and it was angle aluminum and fiberglass, and we didn't have to guy anything. And finally, we had a 2-element Moxon. We put it up on the deck and strapped it to the side of the deck. This antenna worked really well. It was hand rotated up about 30 feet. Unfortunately, we didn't get to use it a whole lot because we had water get into a connection on the feed line, and it quit working, so we had to put up an inverted V. That's you.
As I said before, everybody was nice. We had no issues at all. In fact, one of us, I won't say who, left their credit card at one of the restaurants one night, and we went back the next night, and they had it, in a safe, locked up. No problems at all, because they, I think, depend on tourism. Fish, maybe a little bit of fishing, but basically tourism. So even the people that were visiting there were very nice, asked us a lot of questions, asked us what we were doing, where we were from, and everybody was just, just very, very nice. We had never felt unsafe at all on the island at all. Okay. There was a problem with a ship that wrecked, and one of the bars was called the Cow Wreck Bar, and evidently there was a ship. I don't know if it got hung up on the reef or what, but it wrecked in the 1800s, and there were cow bones all over, and so that was one of the things that we always kind of wondered about. The station before, we were in a very nice cottage. We actually had two cottages. One was about 1,000 feet away, and we actually had to drive to get to it. But this was the inside of where we were going to operate from. The construction was new because in 2017, I think it was, Irma kind of wrecked the whole island. And so all new construction and a lot of things under construction. Typical of an island down there, the construction, you saw a lot of rebar sticking out of structures that were just like one story, with the possibility of a second story being added later on after things kind of got back to normal. We had the okay from Ann, the owner of the cottage, to move anything around just as long as we kind of put it back. And so we had one table inside. We brought another table in from the outside. They were not quite the same height, but she promised that the next time people come down, she'll have two tables at the same height. It really didn't hurt us too much. So that's the station before, and here is what it looked like. Here is what the setup was. We had a run, partner, and molt. We had actually 3 K3s. We used, for the run, we actually used a K4D, and a partner was a K3, and the molt was a K3. And so we used N1MM in the partner mode. That worked maybe 70% of the time or something. We had some problems. It wasn't 100% foolproof, but it was very convenient because the partner station could help the run station and also could take over completely. We only transmitted on the run station. The partner could listen on the same antennas. We actually used a 3-way or 4-way splitter out of the main run station to feed the partner, to feed an SDR. The molt station had priority. So if there was a molt, he took over the transmit antennas. He had a separate listening antenna that was about 300 feet away to listen on, but when he transmitted, he could choose either the Moxon or the USJA or the European in-fire broadside array. So that worked out, I would say, probably 98% of the time. We did have a little confusion here and there. We had no problems with the equipment. I mean, we brought a lot of stuff, as I said, but we had a backup K3. We had backup power supplies. We backed up everything because this is a one-time shot. We call it the 3 stages guide to multiplier hunt, 3 stages guide to multiplier hunting. As you can imagine, sometimes the molt station could not hear a molt, but on the run station they could, because we only had the inverted V listening on the molt. So we'd have to give thumb signals or say give your call, and how that goes back and forth. But again, that worked out pretty good. We were pretty happy, and we got most of the mults. We were a little shy. We missed a few that would have helped us in the end. The problem that we had was that, and we, as Mark mentioned, we got down there on Monday. Monday, probably late morning. So we had all Monday, and our first priority was we were going to set up the verticals on the beach. So we had that done and out of the way. We did that. The verticals, we had, of course, tune the verticals, but I think by Monday, I believe we got everything set up, ready to go. The problem that we had was that Friday night, the wind and the rain really peaked up. And there were sustained winds and a lot of rain, and that we lost the support that was holding our junction of the Foursquare. We lost that pipe. We lost some sand spikes into the ocean that we did not recover. Luckily, we had some extra verticals that we were able to substitute. So what we did, at dawn, the contest started off on Friday night, as you know, and it was not good. I think we worked a couple long path stations. We were hoping for a lot more because before the contest, we worked a lot of long path. And we were hoping for, some Southeast Asia, and I think we worked a couple stations at a few South Americans. I think the first night we probably only had 75 or 100 queues, so it was kind of disappointing. But so we thought, well, okay, Saturday morning. Well, Saturday morning we got there, and the antennas were down. So right at dawn, we were trying to get antennas back on. I think we got a single 2 vertical array going to Europe that we used, and Mark started running queues to Europe, and then we tried to get the USA JA back going and get it aligned properly and get the spacing and everything back set up. The other thing that we had was that we had, with the wind and the rain, we had problems with 2 coax connectors, even though we did the tightening of the barrel connections with pliers and used vulcanizing tape and Scotch 33 tape. Somehow we got water in 2 connections, and that took us off on a couple antennas. So the Moxon, from Saturday morning on, we were not able to use it because it was so windy we couldn't get it down. We had, I think, 4 or 5 foot sections that when we got it up about 30 feet, but it was so windy we just could not get it back down safely. It was a problem getting it up. How are we doing time-wise here? Okay. Okay. I kind of went over some of that about the verticals and the Temflex tape. This is Mark doing SO2F. We had a lot of flies. It was, they were like inside when we got there, and we couldn't keep them out. Even though we had our coax entrance was sealed up very well, the flies it was like they hatched inside. And so, it really was like until Sunday before we got the flies under control. Here's a graph of our score versus P40L. P40L, a very good station, and they ran high power. Our openings were about the same, and as you can see, we were in blue there, and we were ahead of them until the end when they kind of scooted ahead of us. So we were pretty happy with that, ability to compete with a high power station, with several Yankees, and but everything worked out good.
So the original goal included trying to set the low power world record, and when we left Anegada, our claimed score was just above the 2011 TI-5N record. It was about 6%. We were worried that we might have a problem in log checking. Late breaking news. The results for the ARRL 10-meter contest came out on Tuesday, and we did set a new world record. It's about this far above the 2011 TI-5N record, but that was great. We ended up with about 3,000 Qs, about 2,000 CW, and 1,000 SSB. And we were very pleased with that, but we were disappointed that we worked perhaps a dozen JAs. We were expecting a lot more than that, but the JA openings just never materialized. So how did we do so well? Well, apparently we were loud enough so we could maintain rate and run into both US and Europe. We could hear well on the primary station, and on the transmit antennas, the verticals heard very well. Mike already talked about some struggles with hearing on the multiplier station. When we put up an inverted V, it did not hear particularly well. Conditions seemed to limit the JA propagation for everybody. P4L didn't appear to work a lot of JA, so it looks like everybody had similar propagation. And this time, P40L's southern location didn't help them as much as it does some years this time. Another thing was there are a lot of underground utilities, and the site was just very quiet, so we could hear well with the verticals. So that was good. And our propagation, the scores certainly look similar to what was happening from P40. We kept pace, similar openings. Verticals on the beach just worked very, very well. I was astounded when we first put up the USJA stack and I got on and started just running JAs. Unfortunately, those conditions didn't last into the contest, but they worked very, very well. And I can't say enough about the island. As Mike said, the friendliness of the people, the beauty, natural beauty everywhere, the great beaches, great food in the restaurants if you went through the process of pre-ordering, not only making reservations, but pre-ordering your food before you showed up. And I think a lot of that is due to not only their tourism, but their tourism, including the number of yachts that they get docked there. So Kenny, I think, said it best. And he said, of all the places I've been, this is one of the safest and most relaxing places. The North Shore is a great place for verticals on the beach and is family friendly, if only the beach and a book will do. And we were sorry that Kenny could not join us to give this presentation. And we will see you in the ARRL 10-meter contest in December from VP2V. Yes, sir.
The length of the coax? Yeah, right. We had a couple pieces of LMR 400 that were around 75 to 90 feet. So we had pretty short run. Now, the inverted V that we listened to on the mult was about 300 feet away. So, and we just had several pieces of coax. One of those, we did have a bad connection. One thing that we didn't mention, we also had an earthquake Saturday morning. We had an earthquake that was about 4 or 5 miles away. It was not a big one. We felt it. There were signs all over the island that said, in case of tsunami, run this way. No tsunami at all.